and I'm here to talk to you about history at Kingsdale in Year 9. We've taken a considerable amount of effort to think about what we teach, particularly in Year 9, as we've just got Year 9 for another year of Key Stage 3. It's acting as a transition year, and we've got a lot of space to learn about different topics. We start the year with a topic called Racial Injustice in Britain, and it looks at the Windrush generation and their descendants and the ways in which they are able to protest against the injustices that they are facing in Britain. This is a really interesting course that allows students to deal with local history, for example, in areas like Lewisham and Brixton, but it also thinks about the global context and the ways in which people have come to this country and have been continually fighting for justice in cases of mismanagement from the government all the way down to society. So that's a really interesting topic in which students have really found interesting this year, and they've really engaged in terms of introducing their own family histories to it and really spoken well and quite highly of it as well. We then moved to America, looking at the foundations of America and how it was built. And again, this is something that our students have really found interesting this year, to think about the global context of what's been happening in terms of all the protests that have been going on in America, and thinking about the ways in which we can contextualize how we've got to this stage in our history. So it's really interesting to think about in terms of settler colonialism and thinking about how America came to be and how it's developed over the years. Building on from this, we look at the US civil rights movement. So it gives us a nice parallel with the introduction to the year. Although obviously we started in Britain, we go to America to then look at the civil rights movement. And instead of going with the kind of well-known heroes of the movement like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks, even though we do touch upon those individuals, we start to look at more of the hidden figures of the civil rights movement. And this really allows students to kind of find out more about the civil rights movement and to find different stories from it. So they look at women and children in particular and the ways in which they helped the civil rights movement in America and their contributions. And again, thinking about the ways in which protest has developed from the civil rights movement even into our society today, with all the protests going on continually in America against things like police brutality. And recently we've just introduced a new topic, and this is something in which the department has taken considerable care to kind of plan and implement so far. And it's about the LGBTQ movement in Britain in particular, from the 1970s up until the 1990s. And again, it's something in which we've spoken to our students about, and they've really wanted to kind of learn about it in their history lessons. So we've really taken the time to kind of think about the ways to approach it. And again, we've got some real experts in the department who have been really informative and can point students in the right direction in terms of extra knowledge and extra reading for it as well. And these are topics that they all study all before they even start their GCSE modules, really equipping them with the skills and also the knowledge just in terms of how to contextualize the world around them. So it's a really nice starting point, and it gives us a lot of time to explore histories that we might not have had the chance to in Year 7 or Year 8. And then moving on to the GCSE modules, and this is something again which students really kind of grasp at Kingsdale really well. So in terms of the first GCSE module, that is the Germany course from 1890 to 1945. And again, thinking about how Germany has developed during this period, going from a democracy to a dictatorship, and thinking about the ways in which someone like Adolf Hitler, for example, came to power. And it's really important, again, for students to learn about. And again, there are some really kind of big topics in there, for example, like the Holocaust, which students really kind of take time to kind of try and understand and generally engage quite well with. But again, it's something in which we need to be quite sensitive with. And obviously there are many experts within the department who are really informative and can help students in terms of extra knowledge. Moving on from Germany, again, this is something we touch on at the start of Year 10, it's the Cold War. So the Cold War is the rivalry between the East and the West, between communism and capitalism, which really still has a global implication for how the world is today, really. And again, thinking about the politics and thinking about the way in which the world is, students really kind of engage with this course really well, learning about topics like the Berlin Wall, for example, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the arms race, the space race. There are some really interesting topics for students to kind of learn about and to also situate themselves in terms of how things have developed in our recent history. We then go back to Britain, and this is a course in which takes place over 1,000 years. And often students are like, oh my God, this is 1,000 years of history. But But it's a really interesting course which allows students to understand about Britain's global context and think about the people that have come to Britain and who have left and for what reasons. So the course is called Migration, Empire and the People. It looks at migrations to and from, for example, like Jewish migration to Britain, Windrush migration to Britain, for example. It looks at the Pilgrim Fathers going to America, for example. It looks at migration throughout the period, basically. And then it looks at the idea of empires, different empires such as the Angevins, such as the British Empire, how they rose and how they fell. So it really looks at the kind of core ideas of our global kind of context today, how empires have risen and fallen. But it also looks at the people, and the people are really important in shaping both migration and also empires as well. So it's 1,000 years of history, but it's all connected in some way, and it kind of all relates back to how Britain have navigated their way through the world. And lastly, we finish up in year 11 with the Norman England course. So kind of a full circle turn back all the way to year 7. So students start in year 7 with the Norman Conquest, and they kind of finish their GCSE history experience with the Normans as well. And this looks at the period from 1066 up until 1100. And again, thinks about how William conquered England and the subsequent kind of control that he exerted over the people. So all in all, history is a really important subject for us to learn about. Again, it's going to help you understand the wider implications of the world, thinking about how things have developed over time, why things are the way they are. And again, history can teach us a lot of lessons about the past, but it can also teach us lessons about the present as well. And again, thinking about history as a topic, it can open so many doors in your future life. It can take you into many different vocations and jobs. For example, you can become a teacher if you want to. You can also go into law, you can go into journalism. And it's something in which people find really appealing on any particular CVs. History is something which helps you understand the world around you, but it also unlocks and opens doors for you as well. So if you do have any questions, you can email me personally at ove@kingsdale.southwark.sch.uk, or you can contact the heads of learning, and I'm sure they can put you in the right direction so we can have a further conversation. Thank you. Bye.